All right, I'm back.
Dr. Lamb, he told us to come back at 7:05.
See, he has so little faith. I told you it'd be 2 minutes.
And it was actually a minute and a half because it just turned to 7 o'clock when you left. So,
well, I'd already set it up and I had the person to run it, but I just had to double check to make sure that she could get in. You know, I had to go and make her an alternative host and create a link to get in. Because I don't know why in the world he said some people still have their security settings from back in the pandemic when people were jumping in their Zooms.
mm-hmm.
And so for whatever reason, when he set his up this semester, he left all that stuff on it. Well, nobody could get in his Zoom because he wasn't there to start it. He's stranded in an airport. And so I had to create a whole new system and send it out and do that. And so I had to do my own technology. And so, but it worked. But it worked. So that's good. All right. So what I want to talk about next. My next rant will be, let's see. Okay. Yep. I think, yeah, I need to finish up with this one here. This is not my favorite, but that's not the issue. Okay. So everybody's not going to be back till 7:05. Okay. All right. Sarah, where are you with your dissertation?
Don't ask me that. That's where I'm at.
Don't ask you that.
Do you want to know what my coping mechanism has been, by the way? As I started doing Dale Lamb impersonations, by the way.
You started doing what?
Dale Lamb impersonations.
Oh Lord. That's never good.
Yeah, I started it yesterday with my group for study cases. And so
no.
Do you want to hear my favorite one?
Yeah, let's hear your favorite one.
All right, here we go. I only went to school twice. First time to meet with the current principal about the issue. Second time to meet a new principal. The feds will take your house. I'm not lying. Look it up. It's been so therapeutic for me. Thank you for that, by the way.
There's got to be a little bit of humor. Some of this stuff is serious stuff. There's got to be a little bit of humor in it, but yeah, you know.
By the way, if you participated with me yesterday with the impersonation of Dale, I'm not going to tell you who. I'm not going to tell Dale who you were. You're famous, Dale.
I know. Infamous. Infamous. That's exactly right. So,
wait a minute. What are you doing back?
I wasn't gone but a minute. I just had to check on Dr. Revis to make sure that I created a whole new link. I told you Danny's stuck in the airport, and he left all of those safety features on his Zoom where people couldn't break in. Well, the problem is if he don't open it up, nobody else can get in either. So I had to create a whole new system for him today and make it for Dr. Revis, who's subbing for him tonight. Just had to make sure she could get in and everything was good. But yeah, he's got the double. I don't know that nobody would voluntarily ever crash one of my classes. And I suspect they wouldn't Danny's either, but he's still got all that security on his.
Well, I gave him a 5-minute wee-wee break to catch the breath from your rant.
Yeah, well, but I just go from one rant to the next.
Did you hear my impression of Dr.
Yeah, it was bad.
No, will you do it again?
Yeah, of course I will. I will take any opportunity. So here's my favorite. This has been very therapeutic for me, by the way. So this is Dr. Lamb. Only been to school twice. First time, have a meeting with the current principal. Second time, have a meeting with a new principal. I'm not lying. The feds will take your house. Look it up.
I'm back. Well, that's a pretty good one, though.
I think it's better than pretty good.
Yeah, we'll get her to do a video. We'll just post it instead of me having to come. That would be great. We'll do it for faculty meeting. Yeah, we're infamous for disrupting Dr. Bull's faculty meeting. I hate that for him. He's such a nice man, and we just can't behave ourselves. So we'll reserve it for that. So in the end, to finish up on the bullying, cyberbullying, as you know, North and South Carolina, every school has to have a bullying prevention program in their school. Now, as I said, I'm not real big fan of this one that I've got here, but it's got to kind of look like this. It's got to have all these three functions in it: consequences, recognition, and prevention. This is in the law. It's not an opinion. This is, you must have this. Again, I'm not a big fan of this one, but what I do like about it is it checks all the boxes, and it's only 15 slides long, so that makes it a winner in my opinion. But you've got to do this. Bullying is a serious business. You got to get into that. Now, to get over to Valine, what she was talking about, I've got one here. Let me share my screen again. Move that out of the way. Assistant principal accused of not reporting student sexual abuse claim appears in course. This lady ended up getting them 4 years in prison for exactly what Valine was talking about. Kids and teachers were coming in and reporting that they were being sexually abused, and she was threatening the teachers and the kids. And she ended up in prison. That's, she was just trying to keep the numbers down, just like she told. She's just trying to do her job. So we hired a new assistant principal at one of the high schools at Vance in Charlotte. And DPI called me and said, we're not getting any data from Vance. What's going on? I said, it's probably a technical issue. So I hopped in the car and ran up there. Got there, and all their equipment was working fine. The new AP said, well, I'm not putting any of those. She said, I've made my own suspension form, and I'm not putting them in Power School because I was told to get suspensions down. What you were told is get teachers out of their rooms, make sure they're doing lunch duty and hall duty and bus duty and car duty, have people on the hot spots, not to bootleg suspensions, give them and not report them. So my point is, assistant principals want to be principals. They feel a certain amount of pressure to get numbers, make a good number go up, the bad number go down. And they will underreport, they will not report, they will try to intimidate teachers not to make reports, they will threaten students who make reports. Assistant principals who are so ambitious are the scourge of our business. Don't be that person. Play it straight up. It might take you a little bit longer, but play it straight up. Don't give the job away before you get it. Work, do process, put your programs in place. Don't thump your numbers. And you'll be fine on this. You'll be just fine if you will do those things. Now, the other thing that I wanted to hit on tangential to that is intervention programs. You say, Dale, how in the world did you get over to that piece? Again, one of those real important things that they'll make you do as an assistant principal where you can really make some bad decisions is running intervention teams or being the LEA rep on IEP meetings. Usually those will fall to you. Please remember that intervention teams, those are solely the responsibility of the school. There is no buffer. They are what is known as the school-based committee by DPI. They are solely the principal's responsibility. It's not the EC department. And so you can make some really bad decisions on intervention teams because usually the principal makes you do it. You can make some really bad decisions on that. And so here's the most common one that you can, here are some of the wives' tales that you've heard about intervention teams. Now, what we're talking about is the MTSS, the 3 tiers of 30 days to 90 days prior to the EC 90 days. Everybody knows what MTSS is. Go, yes, we know, or no, we don't know. Everybody knows what so Helena, explain to me what MTSS is.
Stands for multi-tiered system of success, and it's everybody's heard of tier 1, 2, and 3. For tier 1, the bottom level, or the top if you invert it, is core instruction, and depending on which research you're looking at, between 80 and 85% of kids respond to core instruction if it's delivered appropriately. And tier 2 is where you start seeing you have a percentage of kids, 10 to 15%, who are not responding to core instruction alone. So you start interventions, and data goes along with that. And you implement your data interventions for a period of time, collecting and analyzing the data along the way. If you still aren't seeing progress towards grade level success, then you go to tier 3 intervention, and you do more of one-on-one or very small group targeted. But along the way, you're still doing tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 all at the same time.
Very good. Is the purpose of MTSS to screen kids for EC, or is it for academic success?
Well, we hope for academic and behavioral success. Depends on where you're at, though.
Yes. So, and you say, well, Dale, what are you talking about? Obviously, it's right. No, some folks try to shortcut the system. And so what they try to do is jump the tracks from one to the other. Let me be clear on this. You cannot run the 2 processes concurrently. Now, you can end one and go to the other, but you don't get time served at the other. For example, say you've done 30 days on the intervention model and it's not working. That's the minimum number of days that you can do before you switch to the EC 90 days. It's 30 days. The law says 30 to 40. Now, when you switch over to the EC model, you do not get credit for time served. It starts at the 90 days. It starts there. You don't say, well, now we're on the 31st day on the EC chart. There's where you get caught in this. Yes, you may end MTSS after 30 to 40 days. Yes, you may. You may not count that against the 90, any of those days against the 90 to derive a EC testing decision. If you do that, then you are simply trying to get to the testing decision rather than try to help the kid academically. That's what will be argued in court when you lose your house, is that it was a sham process just to get to EC testing. You have to be very clear about that. It takes 30 to 40 days in MTSS before you can go to the 90 days for EC. That's where you get caught. That's the sticking point. That's the legal one that trips everybody up. Make sure you understand that. Now, you got 30, 30, and 30 went for EC testing. Now, don't be one of those nitwits that thinks, well, all we have to do is tell the parent to come in and request testing and we can do that. Can't do that either. That is not an automatic. Some people think that's a silver bullet as well. We're trying to get this kid to testing because his grades scores are going to count against us. We're trying to get them to testing for EC to get them placed so that we can get them off of our rolls. And the notion here on that one is as well, when a parent comes in and says, I want my kid testing, again, the law is very clear, 30 to 40 days before you can go to that testing and test that kid. That is not an immediate, pass go, get $200, step to the front of the line. That is not true. So remember, it's going to be 30 or 40 days before you can do anything. Either switch them over to the 90-day process, or 30, even if they're in the EC, 30 to 40 days in that process before you can test them. Make sure you understand how that law works. Now, in 2014, 11 elementary principals in CMS were dismissed or demoted or retired right in August, right before school started. Anybody know why that happened? It was about exceptional children. Anybody remember what the problem was? They were EC testing kids without any days. As soon as the teacher made the referral, they were testing them the next day or two, trying to get them off their rosters for test counting against their testing. Venture a guess here. Do you think it might have been racially identifiable? Who might all those students have been? What race and what gender?
Black males.
There you go. We have a winner. You have to fight that, folks. I'm going to tell you. You have to fight that notion that, these kids, them boys, they're not ever going to do any better. They're tearing the room up. Let's get them an EC, get them off the rolls and get them over in a room somewhere where the rest of us can have school. But the law is clear, folks. You cannot do that. And if you get caught doing that, you'll have to go home. You'll have teachers who want to do that. You'll have folks in your building. You'll have parents coming and screaming at you that want to do that. You cannot do that.
So Dr. Lamb, are you saying that really we can call it 120 days? So you have to do 30 and then 90 before testing?
Well, you got to do 90 and 90 if you go through the entire process, 180. If you go through the entire process of MTSS and there's 90 days for MTSS, it's 90 days for exceptional children. Now, if you start the MTSS and after 30 to 40 days, if you see that it's not working and there's too big a 15-point or more discrepancy between performance and testing, you can end the MTSS and start the 90 days. But you can't go to testing. You got to start the 90 days for EC at that time. But you dare not do it less than 30 days. Between 30 and 40, you can do that. Now, once a kid is in that, if their parent says, I still want them tested, they've got to be in that another 30 or 40 days before you can go to testing. So the minimum that you could get a kid to testing would be 60 to 80 days, 30 to 40 in MTSS, 30 to 40 in EC. That's the law. There is no magic bullet where a parent can come in and demand it and you test them the next day. If you do that, you will lose your job. That's because that's by law, you're trying to just use the process to test kids, not to improve kids or help kids. If you want to help kids, you've got to work the entire process. And please remember again, intervention teams are school-based, and if something goes wrong with them, there is no buffer. There's no EC department or any of that in the way of you. You will get got if you do the intervention team wrong. But understand the law on intervention and on MTSS and EC testing. You need to spend some time with your EC person at your building. That's why I told you to do that. Interview your intervention person. Know what's going on at your building. Go to an IEP meeting. Talk with your EC chair. You got to know what's happening at your building. EC is not the same at every building. They'll want you to write all this stuff out for us. Well, I do have an intervention one from Cumberland County, which is kind of the standard one. I do have it in the shell. But the problem is every district is a little bit different in how they go about the due process. Remember, there's the substance and then there's the procedure. I can't tell you how every district's going to do intervention into EC testing because there's a little variation, but I will tell you what the law is. That's what I've just done. 30 to 40 days of MTSS before you can jump over to the 90 days of the EC. And even then, if a parent requests, you got to do at least 30 to 40 more there before you can get to the testing. Where we're trying to establish that the purpose of both of these programs is not just to get a kid to testing. That it's for academic improvement and behavioral improvement. And if you get caught doing that, it won't go well for you. So that's the whole notion on those. Questions you have or stories that you'd like to tell me about intervention or about what's going on in your building. This is your opportunity to talk and ask questions. So everybody's an expert on intervention, and you gone out and talked to them. Has anybody gone out and done where they talk to their intervention specialist? I had one today, and their EC person. Would you like to share that with the group?
Well, yes, honestly, my interview came first with the email because the EC person was frustrated with the staff at the beginning of the school year, and she sent out the whole process, just because a child is pretty much what you're saying, not doing behaving, not doing work doesn't mean that we can just start testing.
Yeah, exactly.
So and I was thankful for that. And then after she sent out that long email, that's whenever I went and talked to her, because I didn't even know it came out of frustration. I thought she was just trying to inform us about what was going on. But then when I went and talked to her, she said, well, I got so many complaints from teachers, they don't understand the process. So that's my experience.
Yeah.
She taught me to her first.
Yeah, I've actually been in the school. I was the principal of junior high where classroom teachers would send kids down to the EC. They could test them right now. But you got to know, and you'll be the person responsible to enforce that. And also, if you're doing the LEA rep job on IEP meetings, you got to know as well that even though the EC, we're going to switch gears to that one, which is part of this. Regardless that the EC people, the EC department, did all the paperwork and the testing and makes their recommendations, the decisions are collaborative between the parent, the LEA rep, which is usually the assistant principal, and the EC group, whether it be the EC teacher or the EC chair that's there representing it. And a lot of times they'll bring in a regular ed teacher too if the child's in those. And it has to be a collaborative decision. Now, one of the things that you have to be very careful as the LEA rep is promising things that are not in the purview of the district that you're working in. One of the districts that I worked in prior to Charlotte, the LEA rep had promised homebound instruction, except we didn't have a homebound teacher. We were too poor in Burke County to have a homebound teacher. So you got to know what the possibilities are. You can't step outside of what your district offers. And the other place that you get in trouble is who you allow in the meeting. Remember, FERPA laws aren't just educational records. You can't talk about other people's kids. Parents come in and complain about somebody else's child. You can't talk to them. You can't tell what punishment. But you can't have somebody in an IEP meeting that doesn't have standing. What is standing? That's a legal term. That means either they have to be the EC teacher, you as the LEA rep, the parent, and a classroom teacher or regular ed teacher if they teach that kid for at least one period of the day. So you can't just be rounding up people that are coming down the hall in order to fill out the group. That is a FERPA violation. Make sure you understand who can come to those meetings. You can't have other parents, other people, community members. They can't bring their advocate. They have to advertise and bring an advocate. You have to vet them or an attorney or those kinds of things. Make sure that you don't bring somebody in that's going to be a FERPA violation on your part. That's the biggie for running IEP meetings as the LEA rep, which you would be as an assistant principal.
Yes, well, Dr. Lamb, I have a question because like oftentimes EC teachers, they'll just like I don't, it doesn't bother me, but they'll just ask me to just sit in on a meeting because they can't find another teacher.
If you don't teach that kid, say no.
Okay.
That's a FERPA violation. We went over that last night.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just have to change that.
Unless you teach that child, you're not supposed to be in there.
Yeah, I do it a lot.
I know, and that's what we do, and it's nice that you do that, but that's that can get you and them in trouble.
Okay.
Again, the LEA rep, which is usually the assistant principal or the principal, the EC representative, either the chair or the EC teacher that put the paperwork together, the parent, and then a core academic teacher that teaches that kid at least one period of the day. That's all that can be in that meeting from your perspective. Now, if they have an advocate or attorney, that's on their side. That's on them. But, and one of the things that Dr. Sane talked about last night when he does this for Lincoln County, and he partners with me on my Monday night class, is cancel the meeting. If you know you don't have the right people or can't get the person that you need to have, and rather than just flagging somebody like Jessica down walking down the hall, cancel the meeting, reschedule. Don't get caught with the wrong person in the meeting. That's the simplest thing to do, but it's the easiest mistake to make. And it's the one that will catch you out quickest, is having the wrong persons in the meeting. And then the second thing you can do wrong as the LEA rep is promise something that your district can't deliver. So those are the two things you have to be cautious of when you're doing IEP meetings as the LEA rep. And you will have to do those as an AP. Intervention teams, make sure that you know that you can't just get a kid tested at any time. It's the 30 to 40 days on both ends of that. Make sure you understand that. And don't step outside of those boundaries, and you'll be fine on that. So we've talked about discipline. We finished that up. We've talked about EC. We've talked about personnel. We've talked about our case studies. Is there anything else that I've missed that we're supposed to have covered to tonight, the 25th, that y'all need to talk about, that you need to ask?
Dr. Lamb, I have a question because I am on the MTSS team in middle school. I've served on it like 8 years ago in elementary, but like Jessica, I've sat in on many meetings, and that is not my kid. But my question is, we were looking over some data points for a couple students a couple weeks ago, and we're gonna meet with them again, meet to catch up to see like if the teachers have been doing the interventions, XYZ. There's always a watch list that is invisible. And then as a teacher, it doesn't help me because I'm like, what were they doing in the grade level before me? Like, this kid is significantly low. Where are the interventions? So they have this paper sometimes, hopefully, that tells us, oh, we're going to watch them. Just make sure it's in their CUNE folder. It'll go with them next year. And then supposedly we can pick up where they left off. My question is, do I have to start another 30 days with them on those interventions, or can I use that as a data point for their 30 days? And then, but I don't know the kid like that. So, I mean, best practices, I need to do another 30 days. But what I'm asking you is, we were at the meeting and it was a bunch of kids that came from 5th grade, and they were like, well, they started the process that it was too late in the year for them to be tested. So we could test them at the beginning of the year when they go to middle school. Is that true?
No.
So once the school year is dead and we've missed it, because a lot of people want to refer kids February, March, and we don't
When
have
it's
time.
getting close to state testing time. Yeah, I know.
So you have to start from scratch. The watch list really is not really a watch. I mean, it's really just something that makes teachers feel better.
Yeah. Pretty much. Elena, I see you've got something on your mind. You want to weigh in on that one?
Every single thing that has to do with EC and MTSS is all gray. I know that doesn't help anybody at all, but there are lots of possibilities.
You went mute. I'm sorry.
Sorry. There are lots of different possibilities, and it depends on the data that's been collected and how consistent the interventions were, and was the child or children making progress. So there's not a single answer.
So in the scenario that you just presented, Shantae, and the reason why I said no, you can't proceed, is if they waited till the end of the year, the only thing that they did was the 30 days of anecdotals. They didn't do any interventions. You can't start even thinking about testing until there's been some interventions tried, at least 30 days of those. And so if you wait to the end of the year, you know that the first 30 days of MTSS is anecdotal. It's collecting data, it's observing. There's no interventions until the second 30 days generally. Now, if they've done some interventions and they've documented those, and those haven't been successful, then yeah, you can move along. You can pick it up from there. But if all they did was the anecdotals, we referred the kid and watched him for 30 days, then the year ran out. Then you're going to have to observe him for 30 days, do the anecdotals before you do the first level intervention. So that was an easy one. Now, if you said, midway through the year they did this, that's a different story. They might have got some interventions in. But if you haven't done at least 30 days of interventions, no, you can't move on. So, and if you didn't do the anecdotals, how do you know what interventions to try? So therein lies the issue is, I don't know why a teacher would wait, other than they're hoping for, it's a Hail Mary miracle, hoping to get the kid out of their room before test time comes or something. But there's no.
For a parent request. And so instead, all of these kids now that we have 504s, it was like a default.
Yeah, so they moved them they did that just to get them a 504 for testing accommodations. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that's about. That's not about trying to improve the kid or do any interventions. That's just for testing accommodations. That's why that was done. I definitely wouldn't do that wouldn't call that MTSS and skip anything. I'd start from the very beginning, because all that was just prior to testing to try to get accommodations. People playing the game. Again, that's the difference between trying to get academic improvement and working on testing. And you got to make sure that whatever you do is defensible from an academic standpoint, that you're trying to get improvement in the child, not manipulate testing in some way. That's what the law says. In terms of, did you fulfill this child's rights? If you were just manipulating the test, you were not meeting the law. That's the litmus test. Are you just trying to manipulate the testing cycle in some way? Whether it be EC testing or state testing, are you just trying to manipulate that, or are you actually trying to get academic improvement in the child? That's the standard when you go to court or go to a hearing or go to mediation. That is the standard. And if you just waited till the end of the year and did anecdotals, that's just a testing manipulation. It's got nothing to do with interventions or trying to get improvement for that child, to get them some help. That's just the truth. Who else has got something? What else is on your mind tonight that we've covered? We're going to be moving on. We've caught up tonight. We're going to be moving on. Anything else? Everybody good? Work on your OMA. Get it knocked out. Be working on those case studies. I mentioned, again, zero tolerance tonight. It relates back to our first case study. They zero tolerance to Bobby. We know that's against the law. We know they capricious to Bobby. They gave him a whole year out of school for, an infraction that, according to the handbook we looked at tonight, says 1 day of ISS. They put him out for a whole year. You say, well, that could never happen. Michelle just told you it can happen. It did happen. Steve's exactly right. We did some crazy things. I had a friend of mine who was principal at Chase High School. He had a girl, her parents owned the restaurant, but she had the night bag where they put the money in the gun. It was in the car. Somehow they found out it was in the car. They wanted to put the girl out for a year. It was her parents' night bag from the restaurant. And he went to bat for her, and they nearly fired him over that. G.A. Wilson. Yep. So, I mean, we went through a bad time there, folks, where we got the horse completely in front of the cart. Just completely. It went just completely. I'm telling you, we went from 200 due process hearings a year for exclusion in CMS to 2,000, 10 times as many. I had to hire 7 people to do hearings. We lost our grip, folks. We completely lost our grip there for a while. We got to quit. Our schools can't be institutions that just harm kids just as a matter of course. And that's exactly what we did for a long time. And Michelle, that was such a great story tonight. I hate that happened to your niece, but that's exactly what we've been talking about. You got to take your time. Discipline should work toward restorative justice, not punishment, folks. That's not what we're about. We've got to be better than that and do better than that. We've got to handle the little things that become the big things. We've got to run our intervention teams and our EC programs to try to help kids academically and not punish them and get them off our testing rolls. It's all intertwined, folks, in terms of we run schools for kids, not for the convenience of adults. It's all part and parcel of that overall concept. Steve, I'm going to let you finish up tonight.
Okay, so one of the things we need to remember also is the zero tolerance thing was not just board policy. It was legislation. So
yes.
So when you get in, when Dale brought up the gun thing, it resonates that again, depending on where your community is, a lot of the kids in the rural communities would go hunting on a weekend and forget that the gun was in the car, and then oh my gosh, and every once in a while you'd have one that's stupid enough to tell his friends he forgot that it was in the car, and then the friends say it, and it goes forward. But there are other times where you really had to figure out motive and everything else, but with the law you just didn't have the opportunity. I do think that we have made some progress with this.
Yes.
There are a lot of things we haven't made progress with, but that is one that I think we're doing a little bit better with. So let me make sure that everybody knows, both Dale and I as administrators for all those years, understand the want of faculty to be less tolerant of abhorrent behavior. That we need to do something to get these kids out of here so we can have class in a peaceful setting. And there is this fine line, but zero tolerance is not the answer. And I think that's what was the theme of tonight. It'll be the theme of the case study with Bobby. But even with that, this methodology that we use as faculty and administration in trying to I think I'm glad Dale kind of closed his of this restorative piece of can we bring this kid back around to be a productive student and a productive citizen. That should be our goal. Boy, that's easier said than done so often. But I still go back to Dale and I kind of play off of each other. He says this is what can go wrong. I tend to say here's what can go right. As a principal, you have so much power to determine the culture of your school. It doesn't always work out, but I think you develop a reputation accordingly, and things tend to work in that direction of parents wanting their children in your school, teachers wanting to teach in that school, and administration seeing, or central administration seeing, this is how a school ought to look, and then maybe adjusting how they treat it as a district. So I think that's the angle we ought to look toward. All of you are incredible leaders, and that's what you ought to get excited about if you want to be a school or district administrator. And that is my editorial comment for tonight.
Told you we'd get through early. All right, we'll see you next week. Thank you for your patience tonight. Enjoyed it.
Good night, everybody.
Love the impression, Sarah. Keep it up.